Well, good morning and welcome to Innocence Reclaimed, supporting our wrongly convicted. This is a virtual symposium that focuses on the need for those of us in the community to first have an awareness of the plight of people who have been wrongly convicted and to contemplate how we can better serve them. My name is Joseph Williams, and I will serve as the moderator for this important event. I also serve as the chair for the Metro Detroit Out4Life Reentry Coalition. And we have a number of coalition members who are joining us today, including Denise Harris. Denise is the field director for Prison Fellowship, and she's also the co-chair for Out4Life. And we also have Dale Milford, who is helping out behind the scenes. So we really appreciate that. And Denise will be helping out a little bit behind the scenes as well. Out4Life is a coalition of professionals and volunteers who believe that it is our calling to serve the incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, and their families. We serve in the Tri-County area. The coalition is made up of all size organizations, including some large national organizations such as the Salvation Army and Prison Fellowship. Our membership also includes though churches, advocacy organizations, smaller organizations, including some mom and pop organizations, and even some startup organizations. As a coalition, we meet monthly to pool our resources and knowledge to serve men and women who are returning to the Metro Detroit area in a comprehensive manner. We also host 2 events per year. One event usually focuses on policy issues, and one tends to focus on practical issues of service. We host our in-person meetings and events at the Salvation Army headquarters in Southfield at 16130 Northland Drive. Our meetings are held on the second Thursday of each month at 9 a.m. At this time, we will continue to meet virtually. And since you're signed up for this symposium, you'll be notified by email of upcoming meetings, and you'll be provided with a link to join us on Zoom. Some of you who have joined us today know that April has been designated by the White House as Second Chance Month. In a statement issued by the White House, it says that I, Joseph R. Biden, President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim April 21st, April 2021, that is, as Second Chance Month. I call upon all government officials, educators, volunteers, and all people of the United States to observe this day with appropriate programs, ceremonies, activities. This symposium is Out4Life's celebration of Second Chance Month, as we focus on the topic of those who are wrongly convicted and who more deserves a second chance than wrongly convicted people. So I'm going to open us up with prayer. And after prayer, we'll have a short PowerPoint presentation, and then I'll be back. God, we just thank you for allowing us to attend this event. We thank you for calling Out4Life into existence and for the work that we've been able to accomplish over 11 years. We thank you for this event, Lord, to talk about this very important topic, and we pray that you guide us, Lord, throughout this entire event. And we pray that it is helpful to everyone who joins this live, and even for those, Lord, who will get a copy of the recording. We pray that everything we do and say will be pleasing to your sight, and that everyone will feel honored It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
In 2017, the U.S. government designated April as Second Chance Month. In his 2004 State of the Union address, President George W. Bush stated, "America is the land of second chances, and when the gates of the prison open, the path ahead should lead to a better life." In 2008, he signed the Second Chance Act into law. The purpose of the Second Chance Act is to reduce the high number of people returning to prison once released, increase public safety, and assist states and communities to address the growing number of formerly incarcerated people returning to communities. The focus has been placed on 4 areas: jobs, housing, substance abuse, mental health treatment, and families. The goal is to provide opportunities and access to resources on multiple levels to prevent the vicious cycle of rearrest and incarceration. The purpose of Second Chance Month is to publicly promote the idea that every person has dignity and potential, but 1 in 3 American adults has a criminal record, which limits their access to education, jobs, housing, and other things they need to reach their God-given potential. In this country, incarceration has a much greater impact on Black and brown people, especially the young. African Americans are incarcerated at 5 times the rate of white Americans. As movements such as Black Lives Matter grow and mature, we must speak out on behalf of not only those who are murdered in the streets by law enforcement, but also the much greater number of those whose lives are destroyed by the criminal legal system.
Um, so yes, that was me in that video. I was blessed to be present actually at the signing of the Second Chance Act by then President Bush. So Detroit was represented, and we're just so happy to be able to celebrate Second Chance Month. And we are also blessed to have a Second Chance Act funded project here in the city of Detroit that is operated by the Detroit Rescue Mission Ministries. And we have the director of that program, Miss Tiana Brown, who is present with us. And I want to give Tiana a few minutes to share about your project.
I'm going to talk to you about the Getting It Right program here at Detroit Rescue Mission Ministries. It is one of the Second Chance Act grants that we have been blessed to have here. Our program focuses on reducing recidivism. So we provide all of our clients with a mentor. Their mentors are individuals who have also served time in prison and have successfully reintegrated into the community financially with their families and things of that nature. So our clients get a chance to work with people that have actually been through the same situations that they've been through, and who better to help you deal with trials and tribulations than someone that has also been in your same shoes. And we also provide our clients with a case manager, and the case manager does provide a personalized service plan for our clients. We help with IDs, birth certificates. We have employment referrals that we receive from the state of Michigan on a regular basis, with family reunification situations, anything that they may need once they return home. Our program did take a hit due to COVID-19. And due to that happening, we were given an extra year to see this program succeed, as well as given the opportunity to pull in clients that have been released from prison for 6 months or less. Prior to this, we only dealt with clients that came directly from prison, but now we're going to open our referral pool to give other people that have already been out for 6 months or less and seeing that they still need help a chance to join our program as well. So if you are interested in joining our program, we can look into the qualifications to see if you are able to. As I said before, this is for people that have been newly released from prison. And now, in addition, we also work with people that have been released for 6 months or less. Did anybody have any questions, or did you want me to go in any further detail, Joe?
No, we thank you, Tiana, and certainly that Rescue Mission Second Chance Act program is an important part of our coalition, and we're committed to work with you as you serve our neighbors who are returning to us from prison. So thank you for that, Tiana.
Thank you.
I want to let you know we are gonna have a Q&A at the end of the event. And so what we want you to do is to put your questions in the Q&A portion of our symposium, not the chat, but the Q&A. And Denise Harris will be monitoring those, and we'll coordinate those questions. And at the end, any questions that you have for any of our panelists or any of our speakers, they will be addressed at the end. So now I thank you, Tiana, and now I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker for today, Hakeem Nathaniel Crampton. Hakeem Crampton is serving a 4-year term as a commissioner on the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, appointed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer in 2019, making Hakeem the first formerly incarcerated person appointed to a state commission. Hakeem, please share your compelling story with us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you for having me in this space. This is a very important space to me. I'm glad and honored to be in this space with several exonerees who are on this panel, and will be speaking today and presenting and sharing their compelling stories. Not only have I been fortunate to work in the space of criminal justice advocacy and policy change here within the state of Michigan, in my own hometown of Jackson, and nationally as well, but how I got to this space and why it's passionate to my life is because I come from those places and spaces of inside correctional facilities when I didn't belong there. I was wrongly convicted in 1991 for a first-degree reckless homicide charge in the city of Milwaukee. I was 18 years old, had gotten in trouble as a youth here in Michigan, decided to start fresh in Milwaukee. And while there, got arrested at a liquor store for a simple battery, a fight with another young teenager. Once in custody, the detectives, the Milwaukee Police Department detectives, began interrogating myself and my friends relative to an unsolved murder that happened 3 weeks prior, an unsolved murder that none of us had any knowledge of. That interrogation ultimately led to the detectives playing the interrogation game by saying that my co-defendant, who became my co-defendants, confessed and said that I confessed, and they said that we confessed and they confessed, and back and forth tactic of saying each other confessed, until one young man named Mark Henry believed the detectives that I confessed and said he was involved in the murder, when in fact he wasn't, and I hadn't confessed. So therefore he confessed, believing that his only way to get out was to confess to a crime he hadn't committed, but that the detectives told him they would help him get out if he in fact confessed and said that I did the murder. Long story short, based on his false confession, me and a friend of mine, Joe Robinson, was wrongly convicted, wrongly prosecuted, right, with no absolute zero evidence, zero physical evidence against us, simply based on his confession. We were convicted, and I was sentenced to 45 years in prison at the age of 18. Fortunately for me, that was an eye-opener for my personal self, my personal journey, to wake up to what I could achieve in life. And I began self-rebuilding while I was there. And I had the fortune of having a supportive family, my mother, who continued to advocate for me. And ultimately, after about 11, 12 years, the Wisconsin Innocence Project got involved in my case and was able to ultimately assign some students to my case who took a non-traditional route. We went to the actual Wisconsin parole chairman, the former Wisconsin parole chairman, Leonard Wells, who listened to the Wisconsin Innocence Project, to community advocates who had been advocating for me, who listened to my mother about my innocence. And he agreed that I should be freed from prison, and he granted my release in 2006 after 15 years of wrongful imprisonment. He granted my release on parole. Sadly, I have not yet been exonerated for that murder. Sadly, I remain on parole 15 years later for that murder. And so it's just a very, I take this very personal, the issue of wrongful incarceration and the connection between what happens when young Black men are not represented by adequate opportunities through the criminal justice system to avoid being biasly prosecuted and racially profiled and get caught in the systems as we were. There was absolutely zero reason for any of us to have been ever charged in that case whatsoever. And it's well known, it's just sad that I have not been exonerated myself. But it's important that we have this conversation and that we have these great exonerees who are on this symposium tonight to also share their stories, because society needs to understand that it happens far too often that people are wrongly convicted of crimes, and not just wrongly convicted, people often are wrongly arrested for crimes, and it starts with the arrest. And that's where we should be focusing at, the beginning of correcting the problem with wrongful convictions. It starts with the arrest, when there's that police contact, right? And then that leads into the criminal justice system with prosecution and then inadequate defense attorneys oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes, and judges, judicial discretion playing roles involved in these cases in which people are wrongly convicted. There has to be some measures of accountability, and it's great that we're having this conversation. And so I'm very excited to be here. And so thank you all for having me and listening to my story, and thank you.
Thank you, Hakeem, for agreeing to come and to share your very important and compelling story. And Hakeem and I, we do get to work together on a regular basis. I work for the American Institute for Research on behalf of the Bureau of Justice Assistance, overseeing the Second Chance Act portfolio. And Hakeem serves as a navigator who comes alongside some of our many grantees and helps them to reach the goals of their project. So appreciate you this morning, Hakeem, and appreciate you working with us to serve formerly incarcerated men and women around the country.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me once again.
Yeah, right. So at this time, Marly Mitchell-Cichon is going to share a bit with us about her work. Marly is a distinguished professor emeritus at Western Michigan University, Cooley Law School. And Marly is also counsel to the Cooley Law School's Innocence Project. She served as the project directors from 2012 to 2020. So Marly, would you share with us at this time?
Good morning, everyone. I'm really glad to be here as well. And Hakeem, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I could not agree more that one of the best ways to advocate is to tell these stories so that the general public understands. So good morning, everyone. Again, my name's Marly Mitchell-Cichon. I'm the former director of Cooley Law School's Innocence Project, which was started in 2001. And our program focuses primarily on obtaining post-conviction DNA testing to prove innocence. And more recently, we've expanded our work to look at forensic practices more generally, There's a misconception, perhaps, again, about what science is in the criminal justice system. So one example is a bite mark comparison, which is there's really no scientific basis for, but yet that type of evidence has been used consistently throughout the history of our criminal justice system to link a particular person to a crime scene. So I think what I would just like to highlight in the few minutes that I have is some of the changes that are taking place and happening, which I think are very positive. So again, our program was started in 2001. And in order for us to get DNA testing in a case, we had to go to court and we had to convince a judge that DNA testing was appropriate, which means that we have to meet a number of legal criteria. Similarly, in a more general case, you have to have new evidence to file a post-conviction motion. The law does not distinguish between those who have been wrongfully convicted of a crime. And once you are convicted after your trial, it's virtually impossible to prove your innocence. Your opportunity was at that trial. And if you did not have effective representation, or there was key information that was not known at the time or was learned later, the appellate system that we use to review criminal convictions really doesn't provide a very good avenue for proving innocence. And so within the last, I would say, maybe half a dozen years, we've started to see both in Michigan and nationally the establishment of wrongful conviction integrity units within the prosecutor's office. And we're really fortunate today to have the director of the Wayne County Conviction Integrity Unit, Valerie Newman, who's also going to speak for a few minutes. And that has been a game changer in terms of the work that we do in the innocence community, because we collaboratively work with the prosecutor's office to obtain the DNA testing in our cases, review forensic practices, and in some cases, that unit will reinvestigate the entire case to bring the truth to light. And I've been very fortunate to be able to have formal collaborations with both the Attorney General's office and the Wayne County Conviction Integrity Units in this new endeavor. So I think for those of you who are reading the newspaper and you've seen so many more folks walking out of prison more recently, in large part that is because the way we approach innocence cases in Michigan is changing. And with that, I'll just look forward to having some questions later. And I'm really glad that we're focusing on reentry of these very deserving individuals.
Thanks so much, Marla, and thanks for the great work that you're performing on behalf of wrongly convicted people. So now we're going to hear from Valerie Newman, and Valerie is a director of the Conviction Integrity Unit for the Wayne County Prosecuting Attorney's Office in Detroit. So Valerie served as an attorney with the State Appellate Defender's Office for over 23 years, arguing hundreds of cases before the Michigan and federal court. So we're grateful for the work that you're now doing, Valerie. So would you just share with us a little bit about your work?
Sure, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. This is a great panel. And I'm going to focus my remarks today a little bit on the work that I'm doing in particular, not just in the Conviction Integrity Unit, but also on the reentry front. So in 2018, Prosecutor Kim Worthy started the Conviction Integrity Unit in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. She hired me away from a lifetime of being a public defender and working at the State Appellate Defender Office to head this new unit. In a little over 3 years that the unit has been up and running, we have recommended to Prosecutor Worthy that 28, all men so far, but I'm sure someday soon there'll be some women in the group, but 28 men should be released as a result of our investigative work, finding either actual innocence or if short of actual innocence, that there were problems with the trials or the convictions that we could no longer feel that we could stand behind the conviction. Two of those men are on the panel today, so I look forward to hearing from both Marvin Cotton and Ramon Ward. And in Ramon's case, that's one of the cases that we worked on with Marla and the Cooley Innocence Project. So the nice thing about the Conviction Integrity Unit is it's a search for the truth. So we've heard like from Hakeem how he's still fighting, you know, to get that recognition that he's actually factually innocent. And what we try to do in our unit is, you know, we try to make it a one-stop shop. So if someone says, you know, I was wrongfully convicted of a crime that occurred in Wayne County, we open up an investigation. We will look at everything. We start from square one and review all the police work. We review everything that's been done. If we find any kind of misconduct or any issues with the police, we will report it to internal affairs. And we've had several investigations opened based on our investigations and what we found. The same thing with the prosecutor. So some questions I get often are, well, what do you do if you find misconduct on behalf of the prosecutor's office? You're now in the prosecutor's office. Our unit's an independent unit. We're walled off from the rest of the office. We do our investigations independently. I have my own detectives. And so we are not beholden to anybody, any entity. Even though we're in the prosecutor's office, we operate like a totally separate, like we're in a totally separate office. In terms, I think most of this today is focused on reentry. So I want to take a couple minutes on reentry. I believe that we are the only conviction integrity unit in the country that is working with the people that get out through the work of our unit to help them in their efforts to reenter society. So as part of the Wrongful Imprisonment Compensation Act, where people can be compensated for their time that they were wrongfully incarcerated, there's another bill that a lot of people don't know about that provides for the same type of assistance to an exonerated person as someone who is getting out on parole would have. And we had to fight hard for that bill. And we had to fight hard within the MDOC and with our exonerees, because as you might expect, there's a lot of resistance once you've been wrongfully convicted to having anything to do with the Department of Corrections. But I think that we forged a very successful program. It's called the Offender Success Program, where they understand, the people in the MDOC understand that exonerees are different. It's not that they've gone through, been convicted, and now they have to spend a year or 2 years on parole. They went through a work and had time to get ready for it. Exonerees go through a whirlwind. Like 1 minute you're in prison, and then the next minute you're out in the world. And you really had zero time to prepare for this. So it's a very jarring, it's a very happy, everyone's thrilled and happy, but then reality sets in and you have no clothes or toiletries or, no ID, no money, you don't have you might not have a support system set up. So what we've tried to do, and I'm really thrilled that Marvin's on here today because he's really taken the lead with this exoneree group, is work together with one another and make contacts outside. I know Pastor Terrence is on the call. He's done a lot of work with folks who have gotten out. We've teamed up with Proving Innocence. They often will provide some cash to people so they have some pocket money to get themselves back on their feet. Working with any agencies that, we're trying to tap into all these different programs that are out there to help people get back on their feet, make sure they have a safe place to live, working on some of the things that Tiana talked about, family reunification, helping with medical and all the things that people need help with, that if you were coming out on parole, you would have had time to work on those things and come out maybe a little better prepared than you can if, you know, you have maybe at the most a week's notice that you're going to be released from prison. So that's what we're doing. We have meetings the second Tuesday of every month. Like everybody else, our meetings are via Zoom. We invite anybody who's been exonerated. Julie's come to the meetings. Doesn't just have to be if you received relief through the Wayne County CIU. You know, anyone's welcome to attend who wants to, and you can contact Marvin, you know, to get information about and notice of the meetings. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Valerie, for sharing about your work, and truly appreciate your passion over the years for serving this group of people. And we look forward to hearing more about the good work that you're carrying out in our community.
Thank you.
So at this time, we're gonna have our panel, and I want to remind you once again that if you have questions, put them in the Q&A section. Right now, I want to introduce to you our panel. Our panel consists of Terrence Devison. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. Is pastor of United Kingdom Church in Detroit. Raymond Ward, who is an exoneree. Julie Balmer, who is an exoneree. Marvin Cotton, also an exoneree. And Bishop Herman Starks, who was wrongly accused and is now working with Michigan United. And so we're going to start with Terrence and give you just 2 minutes, Terrence, to share about something about yourself.
Good morning, and thank you for the space. Just a little bit about myself. We started out as helpers about 3 years ago. We were introduced to a few gentlemen who were, at that time, not even home 90 days from prison. We were introduced to them at our church at an Angel Tree program. And
excuse me, Terrence, would you turn on your camera, please?
Sure. All right, is that a little better? I'm sitting in my big 18-wheeler. I would blow the horn, but it'll blow everybody out the water. It's pretty loud. We started out. Okay, so we started out as helpers a few years ago. When we did get started, as we were exiting the building, the Angel Tree program, they had an Angel Tree program, and that's a program whose children whose parents are incarcerated. So we had the program, these recent exonerees came, and as we walked out the building, we exited the building, we had conversation, one thing led to another, and I gave one gentleman my card, told him to lock my number in. He had just recently received a cell phone, but didn't know how to lock the number in. The gentleman with him didn't know how to do it as well. So we started really right there in the parking lot, and it grew to where we are right now. We really, just in a nutshell, we just want to assist and have been assisting those men who were recently exonerated. We wanted to help them to get reacclimated to the free world with financial support, home assistance, job placement, human and social service needs, just about anything they needed. If we didn't have the resources, we found a way to get it done and make it happen. So the work began to grow, and it went from 2 guys to, as we found out more and more men were coming home, it grew to where it is right now. So we're almost just a committee, like a welcome home committee, and I'm not minimizing what we do, but we do everything we can to just play our part to assist the guys in getting acclimated to being home. And most of this really wouldn't be possible. And I have to say this, and I always try to take the time to say it. None of this would be possible without the work of the Wayne County Prosecutor, Madam Kim Worthy, and most certainly none of it would be done. And none of these conversations would even be had about exonerations without the great work and the tireless work ethic of Attorney Valerie Newman and the Criminal Integrity Unit. So we just do our part as a church and as an ambassador group just to help to welcome these great men home. And thank you for the space.
Thank you, Pastor Terrence.
welcome.
Now, Ramon Ward. We'll hear Ramon Ward just share a little bit about yourself.
How you doing? How you doing? I was wrongfully convicted in 1994. I was released last year. I served 26 and a half years for a crime I did not do. Right now, I'm working up under my wife. She's an attorney. I'm doing investigative work. I'm a notary. I serve process servers. I also have a nonprofit, Life After Justice, and also Justice Denied. Our goal is to help ones come home and legal representation, as well as housing if possible. Right now, I'm staying humble. I'm staying out of trouble. And for the most part, I'm just staying positive and just trying to help ones get back on their feet, because I know firsthand that people need help. And if you don't do nothing, then they don't have nobody to lean on. So by me doing 26 years, it's very important to me to reach back and don't forget where I came from. If it wasn't for Valerie Newman, Integrity Unit, as well as Innocence Clinic, doing their due diligence, I wouldn't be here right now. And also Kim Worthy. So I give my thanks and my gratitude for the hard work and dedication that they did. The basic needs for ones that's coming home for me personally would be the resources as far as housing. It's a lot of guys who come home who don't have nothing. And again, it's a difference between exonerees and parolees. Clothing, transportation, technology, trying to get their driver's license. If they don't have their birth certificate, it's kind of hard for them to get their driver's license. Mental health. A lot of them need psychologists. They need help as far as talking to a psych, helping get back straight in society, because they've been confined so much in a room for something they didn't do.
Thank you, Ramon, I'm sorry. So we're going to get into a lot of this nitty gritty stuff.
Okay.
In the Q&A, and I'll have some questions for you. So appreciate you sharing your story, Ramon. And now Julie will share a little bit about her story.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. Everything that everyone has shared thus far, there's no reason for me to reiterate, but I will let you know that it's 100% on cue. In 2005, I was wrongfully convicted and of child abuse and sentenced to 15 years. In 2009, by aid of the Michigan Innocence Clinic, strictly a non-DNA clinic, I was awarded a second trial where I was exonerated, and it was found to be that my nephew did not suffer shaken baby syndrome at the time. That was the term. But factually, he unfortunately had suffered a form of childhood stroke, venous sinus thrombosis. I've now been home for about 10 years. I can't say any year gets any worse or any better. There's a lot of ups and downs. I've reintegrated myself into society by way of putting myself into service organizations. I serve on the board for my local Rotary Club. I'm past president of my local Optimist Club. I do a lot of work in numerous capacities within the innocence world, as Valerie pointed out. And basically, you know, it's certainly an issue that doesn't have the taboo feeling that it did 10 years ago, if you will. But it's still an issue that needs to be continue to have awareness. So I think this is good that you guys have put this on, and I thank you for giving me a few minutes to share my story.
Thank you so much, Julie. And we look forward to hearing more from you. So Marvin?
How you doing? My name is Marvin Cotton. I was arrested and convicted in 2001. I was exonerated in October 1st, 2020. My case originated with the murder of a very dear friend of mine, and I was wrongfully arrested for that and subsequently convicted. Of course, being arrested for, the murder of your friend is like a double hit on the head. So not only was I suffering from the loss of a friend, I was suffering, from the wrongful conviction of such. Since my release, I've been working with Valerie Newman and the group that she formed of exonerees to kind of help everybody get on their feet after their release. Once we released, immediately, we're faced with life and we come out with absolutely nothing. So I've kind of taken charge of that group, and I spend my days looking for resources and knowledge and information that can help the newly released exonerees get on their feet, to keep us from becoming beggars, just to put us on an even keel, on an evil or a level playing field. Since my release, I've started my own business, a motivational speaking business called Better Not Broken LLC. I spend my days trying to help people, and that's what I do in my business life, and that's what I do with the exonerees. So what I do on a day-to-day basis is pretty much chase down leads or anything that can help exonerees become more efficient and plug back into society. Being exonerated is not really a second chance, it's more of a resurrection of a first chance. Because we was never supposed to lose that first chance. We didn't do anything to end up in prison. So we're not asking for a second chance. We're actually asking for a resurrection of our first chance.
Thanks so much, Marvin, for sharing that and for your perspective. So Bishop Starks, would you share with us for a couple of minutes?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you for this opportunity, Dale Milford, and everyone on this line. Heard some very impactful statements. But as it relates to me, I was incarcerated in 1987 as a juvenile. I was arrested and charged for a crime that I did not commit. And in that time, in my youth, had no knowledge of how to fight back, didn't have adequate jury instructions, adequate representation, adequate judicial review and discretion, adequate post-conviction, had no knowledge of how to participate in my own defense, etc. All these things is the common thing with young Black males that I think were targeted. But in the years that I have been out, 19 years as of this year, actually 19 and a half years, I've been home and I've been in the community and I've learned how to speak, how to have a voice and some knowledge. And so one of the things that I've been doing is ensuring that I speak to individuals so that they can have some knowledge. And now we're working with the prison population to ensure that they have a voice out here where they had none. We're working on this quote unquote good time credit bill. That's one of the things I connected with Michigan United and was allowed to ensure that we have a presence in trying to fight to allow these individuals to earn some type of good time for good behavior. I think just housing people inside of these warehouses is totally barbaric. It makes absolutely no sense for us to pay $2.3 billion to house people and allow them to come home without education, without resources, without all the things that any basic human would need in order to survive. It's a setup for individuals to continue to gain wealth off the backs of Black and brown people. So enough is enough. I appreciate this panel and all that is being said, because everything that I've heard is a fact, and we have to move forward and making sure that this ends. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. So I'm going to ask that all the panelists come back on camera at this time as we go into the Q&A portion of our event, and you can unmute yourself. And I see that we do have some questions in the Q&A panel. But one of the questions I want to start off with is, what kept you going during your years of incarceration? Anybody could take that. Anyone, any one of the exonerees.
It was for me. It was my faith as well as it was just. I knew that I was going to be exonerated at some point. I just didn't know when. I knew that I had to go through the system. So and of course that took a few years, but yeah, it was absolutely my faith in God and my faith in my innocence.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Ramon? You sure?
Yeah, Julie, she kind of, yeah, it's my faith in God. Had to be strong for my family, of course. It's not alone did I just think about myself. I thought about them. So I was mostly the head of my family. So even if I'm going through something, a bad experience, I still remain strong, even when I was weak. But it was my faith in God and Jesus Christ that kept me going, to be able to walk out there every day and keep fighting, going to a law library, shepherdizing cases, fighting, and being an example that as long as you keep on fighting, something will break through for you. And family support, of course. My wife, she kept me going through the faith in God, in her and me. That's what we remain strong through our bond and just communicating, and just knew one day this I would obtain my freedom one day. Like Julie said, you don't know when. You just got to keep going until it happens. So that's
Amen.
my experience. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Faith is very important. It's really the foundation of endurance. So faith definitely kept me strong, but establishing the truth and not dying in prison based off of lies was something that I couldn't even fathom. Staying strong for my family and staying strong for myself. I lost in court almost 24 times. And it's like, at a certain point, I became so deep in the fight that even the losses gave me strength to push forward even harder, so I would lose and I would shake it off. And the next day I was back at it. But I refused to die in prison for something that I didn't do.
So Pastor Terrence, what attracts exonerees to your congregation? Pastor.
I think the Bible says, with love and kindness have I drawn thee. We make it simple. We just show love to people because we love people. We're in the people business. And I think the word just gets out how we just love on people. You know what I mean? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but what we are trying to do is just let somebody know that, hey, there's a group of people out here that love you, United Kingdom Church, and all of us, we love you. We're here for you. And almost like a marathon, you all see them on TV when they're running. It might be 30,000 people standing along the sidelines, holding out water or Gatorade or juice. And as the runners make their way by, it's up for the runners to take it or not. And so we kind of liken ourselves to those people on the sidelines. We're just holding and extending a cup, of love, a heart of love to the people. And it's up to you to take it or not. You know what I mean? But we're here summer, winter, spring, or fall. And that's because we love the people and we love these great men and we hate what happened to them. So I think that would probably best answer your question.
Okay, well, thank you. So Marla, what are some of the things that you take into consideration when you decide to take a case on?
So our clinic, again, is focused on post-conviction DNA testing. So that means, most of the cases that we would be focusing on are crimes in which biological material would have been left at the crime scene. And we're looking for the perpetrator's biological material. So most of our cases historically have been, violent crimes, criminal sexual assaults, and murder cases, because those unfortunately are the types of cases where this type of evidence exists. And again, we've expanded a bit because what we found is that, evidence wasn't kept. So there could have been a rape kit or blood collected from a crime scene, but that evidence could either not be located or in fact, it might've been destroyed. There was no law in Michigan prior to 2001 to retain that type of evidence. So that sort of pushed us to start looking at forensics more generally, because we often had clients who presented very compelling cases of innocence, but the biological evidence in their case was destroyed. So I'll just mention one case, Ladura Watkins, who was convicted in part based on hair comparison. And we attempted for many years, off and on, to find the hair evidence to DNA test it, but it did not exist. So we were able to attack the science or the lack of science that was used to make his case. And so now again, we work collaboratively with Valerie Newman and Robin Frankel at the AG office. And we don't even have to go to court to ask for DNA testing anymore, which is like amazing. So we call Valerie up, we talk about the evidence, why we want to test it. I don't think Valerie's ever told me no, at least for that. There's a lot of trust that we have with the two offices. You have to trust the prosecutor that you're working with, because obviously our clients' lives are at stake. So that's our primary focus now, is forensic testing and DNA testing.
Okay, thank you. So I see we have some questions in the Q&A. So Denise, what questions do you have for the panel from the Q&A, from the attendees?
We've got a lot of good ones here, Joe. Let's just go through the first one here. Alicia says, good morning to everyone. Her husband was wrongfully convicted by Wayne County, and he remains incarcerated today, unfortunately, 15 years later. And her question is, there was an article, she said, that was just released noting that Michigan ranked second in wrongful convictions, and wrongful convictions overturned in 2020. 13 of 20 of those were in Wayne County, 85% of wrongful convictions overturned in Michigan. She's given a lot of stats here, which is great. But her question is, how did this happen? Why is this continuing to happen? And how do we stop this from continuing? So she's just talking, I guess, in general, in regards to wrongful convictions in Michigan.
Okay, anybody want to take that?
I'll jump in there. Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead, Bishop. No, you go.
No, my thinking is one of the things that we're working on through Michigan United is the reforming of Michigan's criminal justice system. And each of these panelists play a part in that, because we all understand what has occurred, the wrong side of it, and what can we do far as the 21st century. And part of it starts with the reforming, reshaping how this justice system look. Like a statement ago, I was speaking about the judicial review, the judges in their roles, the prosecutors in their roles, the budgets that exist for individuals that come through the system that have no money, no family, and things of that nature. Like all these things play a part in people going in, as well as people coming out, and with a high recidivism rate, because they just sit inside a prison and learn how to become a criminal. Some people go in, was not a criminal, but they come out a criminal. That makes absolutely no sense. So my statement to that is that we come together to do this reforming of Michigan's criminal justice system. That's how we stop that.
Thank you.
Great. Eliana has a question in regards to...
I think Valerie wanted to also address that question.
Oh, go ahead, Valerie.
I can respond a little more specifically, I think. So what I'd like to say is, first of all, I don't know, Alicia, if I'm taking the question the right way, but part of it feels like it's a negative that so many people were wrongfully convicted, and it is. You never want anyone wrongfully convicted. But on the other hand, the 13 wrongful convictions that came out of Wayne County in 2020, every single one of those was from the Conviction Integrity Unit. So if our unit did not exist, there would have been 0. So the fact that the prosecutor is willing to devote resources, I mean, don't get me wrong, we need a lot more resources. But the fact that resources are devoted in the prosecutor's office solely to investigating innocence claims, and as a result, not one of those cases in Wayne County came from a court case, for all the reasons people have discussed about how difficult it is to overturn a wrongful conviction in court. They've all come out of my unit. So I'd like to contribute to this conversation by maybe helping people rethink the numbers a little bit in terms of the 13 is a negative, right? Because you have 13 people who should have never gone to prison in the first place. But it's also, in some respects, a positive because it shows the commitment of the office to undoing the injustices of the past and making sure that people get out and not making them fight through the court system. Because I know as a defense attorney, and Marla knows, you know, and Julie knows, like, even if you win in court, then the prosecutor's office might appeal and appeal and appeal, and it can take years. I mean, I had one case that I lost all the way through the state court system. I won it all the way through the federal court system, but I litigated that case for 8 years before my client got relief. You come through the Conviction Integrity Unit, and I understand it takes a long time. Again, I don't want to minimize 1 minute that someone spends in prison wrongfully incarcerated. But when you compare it to my procedure to a court procedure, even if it takes years for us to pick up the case and work through it and get a result, the result is final. It's like it's coming from the elected prosecutor. There's no appeals, there's no one fighting you. In any other stage of the process, you're out. In terms of making things better, one of my missions and one of the reasons I took this job is it's wonderful to correct an injustice, you know, person by person by person, but you have to do what's called sentinel reviews. So if someone dies in a hospital, right, they do, they bring everybody together and they look at, all right, what went wrong? What can we do better? How can we avoid these mistakes in the future? We're not doing it yet, but we are on the path to doing it through my unit, that same kind of thing. So what we know what the common causes of wrongful conviction are. So how can we stop it in the chart? Let's go back to the charging phase. And what can we do to keep people out of the system totally? Or if we don't stop it at the charging stage, once people are in the system, how can we get better at identifying these cases that shouldn't go to trial? So that, you know, ultimately in my perfect world, I would be out of a job. I mean, the system would, but the reality is we're a system of human beings and we're a system of biases. And there's systemic racism that's so baked into the system. It will take decades to undo it if we can ever truly undo it. But I mean, we have to understand the systemic racism that's baked into the system when you're trying to dismantle it and create something better. It's just a long road. And I think you need a lot of people like the people on this call and people like, you know, people working from the inside, people working from the outside, collaboratively working together to say, you know, all right, none of this is working. So how can we create a system that keeps our community safe? Because there are people who are dangerous and we need to keep our community safe, but at the same time, you know, not engage in this dehumanization of people. Even if they have committed a crime, they're still human beings. And how can we all work cooperatively together? So for your husband, I hope he's applied to the Conviction Integrity Unit. If he hasn't, he should. You know, if you want to give me his name, offline or privately, we're happy to send him the materials.
Thank you, Valerie. I think we're ready for another question, right, Joe?
Yep, go ahead, Denise.
This might be for Marla. What is the average time to overturn a wrongful conviction? Gary asks.
Too long. It really just piggybacks on what Valerie just said, right? I am working on a case now where my client has been incarcerated for 32 years. He is still not released. He has gone through the Michigan court system twice, the federal system twice. When we filed for post-conviction DNA testing, this was prior to conviction integrity units in existence, that was opposed. So we went through the Michigan court system again, just to get post-conviction DNA testing. I've been working on that case myself personally since 2003. So too long. What's again, kind of going back to what Valerie's saying. I mean, what's different now though is if I got that case, let's say 6 months after the conviction or a year after the conviction in Wayne County, that process could be, shortened. It really, most people I would assume that are here because they want to support people in reentry, or they have someone they love in prison, right? And they want to get good information, right? And so unfortunately, when you're looking at a wrongful conviction, how long that person, that's so important to that person and their family, right? There's not a short or a long. There are statistics out there that say 8 years, 8 to 12 years. But in my experience, the older the conviction is, the more difficult it's going to be, right, to reconstruct what truly happened, because witnesses die, evidence is lost. So it really does depend on the specific case, how long it's going to take. And as Valerie said, neither one of our offices have, unlimited resources. So, individuals have to wait. And it's very frustrating, and people get very upset with us, or I'll at least say me, in my office at times. But truly, the people that do this work, I don't know anyone who does this work that does not work tirelessly, because it seems like very sexy work, but it's not. It's very, very challenging and difficult. So in my office now, we have the largest staff we've ever had. But that said, the cases are not necessarily moving any faster, because again, working with a conviction integrity unit, more folks are going to have an opportunity to have their cases looked at and reinvestigated. So the demand for our services increases daily.
And Denise or Joe, whoever I'm asking, I just want to add on to Marla's thing. One thing is, it's very important. It's very difficult for people to trust a conviction integrity unit. And I totally understand that. You've been wrongfully convicted by the prosecutor's office, and now we're turning around and saying, here we are, we want to help you. You have to build trust, and I understand that. But it really makes our job unbelievably difficult and sucks resources away from other cases when people are not honest. And I've had multiple cases where people have lied to us. They've still gotten relief because we've dug through. We've been able to investigate and dig through and figure, kind of get to the truth eventually. But it really does, it's very difficult to effectively investigate a case if people can't trust you and come forward and be honest about the information that they have. And also, of course, there's still a very strong code of trying to help yourself by not implicating somebody else. And at some point, people just kind of got to make that decision. If you're going to help yourself, you have to be honest.
Can I chime in for a second? All right. I think one of the things that for trust purposes is that there needs to be a separation of the budget from the prosecutor's office. I do not think, and it's just me, that the prosecutor should be controlling the public defender's budget. And because I think that harms the public defender in the sense that they don't have the budget that they need. And then again, they have to practice. Even after the case is over, they still have to participate in this opportunity that they call a job. So, and I've heard this working in law firms as relates to the ambiguity. They have to live with it, whether you getting ready to do life or you're free, it doesn't affect them in the same way. And so I think just for the same purposes in which you speak, that I've had many, many conversations with prosecutors, and their stance is that no matter what the defense side is, they're right, the defense is wrong. And so coming out of that office, I haven't seen and I haven't witnessed that, you know, thank God for you guys, but I've never seen that. And I work directly down in the defender's office, talking with attorneys and dealing with the mindset that existed there. The same public dollars that it takes to prosecute an individual, it should be the same allocated funds for the defense side. And that's not the way that it is. It's unfair. The public defenders have too much say-so, and I mean, the prosecutor have too much say-so as it relates to what the public defender's budget is. That's not right. And that's why the system is designed and set up for the public. The accused is losing because of how the way the system is designed and set up.
Well, I would disagree with that, Bishop.
I'm sure.
The prosecutor's office doesn't control the money. MIDC gets funded by the state of Michigan, not by Wayne County. And the defender's office gets its own independent funding. It's not in any way dependent on the prosecutor's office. That's just not accurate. The prosecutor might give testimony, you know, she might provide testimony to the legislature, but I just want to be clear for people listening, that's just not accurate. The prosecutor's office they get their funding from the Wayne County Commission, and that's it. They don't control anybody else's budget. They just don't. They can't even control their own budget because
So thanks for the clarity on that. So the prosecutor has a salary and the employees inside of the office has a salary, correct?
Yeah.
So why doesn't the public defenders too have a salary?
They do.
No, they don't. They get paid $200-300 per case.
Well, now the professional office, Neighborhood Defender Services, they have an office and everyone has a salary. Other public defenders who have their own practices, right, they get paid by the case. Those are, you're conflating two different organizations.
Well, but they still representing in the masses. They have all these cases that they can't oversee. They overwhelm. They swamped.
Right.
So
that's a different issue, though. That has nothing to do with the prosecutor's office. That has to do with the funding for how people who accept appointments, criminal defense appointments, get paid.
Well, maybe I'm incorrect because I thought because that office is a public seat that we vote on, right? And so there needs to be some balance there. If what you're saying is true, and I'm gonna take that, you know, better than I do.
We have a question here from Eliana. She said, what are some of the programs besides Out4Life that people can get involved in to help advocate for people who are wrongly convicted? Would anyone like to share?
Well, Proven Innocence is usually the first group that contacts those in Michigan that's been wrongfully convicted. I know they contacted me immediately. Pastor Terrence contacted me immediately. Valerie Newman contacted me immediately and invited me to become a part of the group that I had. We go by the name National Organization of Exonerees. Like I said, I spend my days looking for resources, looking for private citizens as well as organizations that will come in and provide some sort of knowledge or assistance to exonerees. I try to be a buffer between the exonerees and the public because one of the things that we don't want to become is beggars. You know, we want our first chance back. We're not looking for a second chance because we didn't do anything to squander or throw away a first chance. We're looking for our first chance back, but we don't want to beg for that. So it is important to find organizations and private citizens that would like to assist in that. The government don't really have programs for exonerees. Although the government have agencies now and organizations like the Conviction Integrity Unit that serve in order to overturn wrongful convictions, the government fails when it comes to putting us back on a level playing field. So it's definitely a need for that, because we come out, we're behind on technology, we're behind on time, we don't have any resources. A lot of our family have died and passed away. A lot of our relationships, you know, I was locked up 20 years. So a lot of people in my life spent 20 years believing that I was guilty of a crime that I didn't commit. So that has a strain on relationships. So now I'm out and people are still getting used to the idea that I'm innocent and that I'm out. So even repairing those relationships, you know, it causes a lack of support there. So the government definitely need to come up with programs to fill in those gaps. So that's what I try to do. I try to fill in the gaps between the exonerees and the government.
Thank you, Marvin.
Yes. Okay. I get calls all the time, and just for an FYI, there may not be a ton of agencies, but there's a ton of businesses that have heard about the exonerees. I get calls, emails, Zoom conference invites at least twice a week. Sunday night, I got a call from a plant manager, and I shared it with the gang just yesterday, Monday. A plant manager of a Fortune 500 company saw their article. He was up all night, called me at 11:30 at night, introduced himself and says to me, hey man, listen, I want to offer every one of your exonerees these jobs. First dibs, no questions asked, the job is theirs. They start off at $17 an hour and they top off at $25 an hour. He says they don't even have to ask questions. Whoever wants it, it's theirs. And I got a ton of companies that's the same way. So there may not be quote unquote advocacy groups, but there are people in the public that hear about you all, and they're concerned. And we just do our best to get the word to the guys and let them decide to either take it or leave it.
Thank you,
I just wanted to slide that in there. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Here's another question for some of our exonerees. What did you learn from your years of incarceration that actually helped you when you got out? So perhaps Ramon or Julie might like to answer that question.
I don't know if I really learned anything I mean, you learn to hurry up and wait. You learn a lot of patience, you know, but I don't want to be facetious about this. I really didn't bring anything out with me that that really has aided me thus far. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that for you.
That's okay. Ramon?
Yeah, I can answer that question. Food tech, I mean, I learned how to cook in there. Food tech, I like to cook, is a passion of mine. And one day I would like to have my own restaurant, Ramon's Grill and Steakhouse. Everything organic, everything grilled, and everything Caribbean food, because it's something different. However, I learned how to shepherdize, read cases, learn the law, and do a lot of research as far as helping guys and notarizing. I'm a notary. So out of Macomb County, I know how to notarize papers and affidavits and all that. That's one of my part-time jobs. I know how to investigate, you know, investigation, patience. It takes you to have patience to do that. And that's some of the benefits I learned since I've been incarcerated. And I'm still learning every day. So yeah, that was a benefit to me.
Thank you so much, Ramon. I want to remind our attendees, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. So if you have questions, please take time to do that. Cindy has a question/comment. She says she's been visiting someone that's incarcerated for 18 years through Northridge Church's prison ministry. And this person has maintained her innocence all these years. Her co-defendant has admitted her guilt in the day room where conversations are recorded for a brief time. She asks, is there a group which would follow up on this in a very timely manner to exonerate her?
Well, I can comment on that. My program, which is based at Cooley's Law School, and the Michigan Innocence Clinic, which is actually the Ann Arbor program. Again, we focus on DNA and forensics, and they focus on non-DNA cases. So kind of everything else. So no one's going to be able to call our offices and say, hey, I have this family member or I know someone, and here's this information. First of all, innocence is a very unique legal claim, right? So these organizations, including the Innocence Project at Cooley, we want to hear directly from the prisoner. We want them to write us a letter and say that they're innocent. That letter, that's really all the letter has to say, right? Maintaining their innocence and a little bit about their case. In fact, that's what our programs prefer. And then we send what's called a questionnaire, and it's pretty thorough, but it doesn't cover everything either, right? We're asking someone to communicate the basic facts of their case through questions that we ask in a written format, which is not always ideal. And it's from there that we begin screening for the criteria that each of our programs run. And it's challenging because even with our focus, again, I'll focus on DNA because it's a good concrete example. Just because there was a rape case, for example, doesn't necessarily mean that a rape kit was collected. And if a rape kit was collected, where is it now, 10, 15 years after the crime? So there's, if someone has resources, meaning they have family support and some money to hire an attorney, I certainly would be happy to make recommendations. This is a very unique practice as well. And what we don't want to happen to people who are innocent, or frankly, anyone in prison, right, is to hire an attorney who doesn't do what they say they're going to do.
Thank you so much. Anyone else want to comment?
I'll just add to that real quickly. To follow up in a timely manner to exonerate her. Again, I have 900 people whose cases have been screened, who meet basic criteria, who are waiting for one of my attorneys to investigate their case. We go through 50, 60 cases that we investigate each year. So you can do the math. There is no, I don't know what timely means, but I would really, if I can convey nothing else today, to temper people's expectations. Every single one of those people are maintaining their innocence. Every single case is of the utmost importance. But we cannot work on 900 cases at a time. And we do our best to prioritize, but often there's other things that control what cases get taken up. If you look at Marvin's case, his co-defendant had a case in the Sixth Circuit. It put an urgency on that case that might otherwise not have been there. Not that Marvin's not important or Anthony's not important or the cases are not important, but because it was pending in the Sixth Circuit, we had time deadlines that we had to contend with that it still took a long time. Marvin will tell you, he got very frustrated with me. And Ramon got very frustrated with me as well. And I think both of them, I don't blame anybody, but I just want to kind of comment on that timely. And if it's a Wayne County case, I would say contact me. Unlike the Innocence Project, or I'll take a recommendation from anybody. So you can be a loved one. It doesn't have to be the person. We will then reach out to the person and have them, let them know that someone's advocating on their behalf and have them fill out the paperwork. So that would be my recommendation. If it's not a Wayne County case, I would write to Robin Frankel. She is the director of the Conviction Integrity Unit for the Michigan Attorney General's office. And that office is handling all cases other than Wayne County. So at least there is an avenue now that you can write to outside of, and you can also always write to the Innocence Projects, both of them.
Thank you, ladies.
Just to speak to that, I would just say to the person who asked the question is to tell them to be relentless. Valerie would tell you I was very relentless. I wrote hundreds of letters to reporters, to Cooley, to the Innocence Clinic, to the Conviction Integrity Unit. I was very relentless the entire 20 years that I was incarcerated. And not only did I work on my case myself, but I did everything that you can possibly do to grab whoever attention that can possibly help me.
Good point, Marvin. Be relentless. All right. Dr. Shauna Reynolds asks, is there a way to lobby to help reallocate funding in the budget of the state for criminal justice for indigent defendants? Because she says this is a very real issue.
So you can lobby. I mean, Michigan Indigent Defense Commission is getting more money every year than they got the last year. So I think there's a real appetite in the legislature and a real recognition that indigent defense has been underfunded forever. And so, yes, I think there's absolutely a lot of room to call your, people in the House and the Senate that are in your district to work with groups like Safe and Just Michigan. I think is one of the most effective groups at lobbying for more money and changes to the criminal legal system. Someone asked on the chat, what can you get involved with? I would say Safe and Just Michigan is one of the most effective groups out there in terms of, lobbying for money, parole reform, and other reforms to the criminal legal system. They've been around a long time and they've really proven themselves and done great work. The ACLU, Bishop Stark's organization. I mean, there are definitely organizations that are extremely active in this fight. I would encourage people to connect with one of those because this is a very complicated issue to try and get change on. And so there's power in numbers.
Great, thank you. This
Yeah,
might be.
if I could just echo on that too,
Go ahead, Marla.
you guys are all voters, you all have representatives. And, when my organization can't lobby, but I can lobby. And and Valerie and I have both been very active over the years working on legislative change, but that's something really simple. I mean, even a call to your local rep saying, I really, my top priority for you, right, as my representative is I want criminal justice reform, right? Or if you have something specific about reform that you'd like to see, that is very helpful.
Thank you so much. The questions are kind of flying in here, and some people are giving me part 1 and 2 and 3. But Rod asks, and hopefully this is not a heated question, but he's asking, what type of accountability is levied against prosecutors who have pushed wrongful convictions against innocent citizens? Who'd like to tackle that?
I'll tackle it. I mean, I think that there's lots of accountability. I mean, I think anyone who, if I was wrongfully convicted, I would probably, as soon as I got out, file a grievance against the prosecutor who prosecuted me. I mean, we do have an attorney grievance commission. I will tell you that we are not afraid to call out prosecutorial misconduct in our unit, just like we're not afraid to call out police misconduct in our unit. If we see it and we can prove it, I will file the grievance in front of the Attorney Grievance Commission. It's not always as clear cut as people think. So sometimes you read a media article and it makes it sound like this prosecutor was just hiding evidence or whatever. But when you are doing the actual investigation, I will tell you, it's just not always clear if the prosecutor had the information or not, or if the police hid it from the prosecutor. I mean, we had one case where the police officer framed somebody for murder. Did the prosecutor have the information? How you don't know if the police officer completely hid the information, or if it was turned over in a mass of thousands of pages of documents and the prosecutor didn't pick up on it. So it's just not always easy to tell. There are cases from across the country where it's very clear. You look at Curtis Flowers, you look at Michael Morton, you look at some of the really famous like prosecutorial misconduct cases from across the country. Yeah, those If I had a case like that, I will tell all of you, you have my commitment. I will call that out. That's what we're here for. And I think Prosecutor Worthy would agree. She does not want people in the office that are hiding evidence or playing fast and loose with the rules. So I think there's ways for the public to deal with it. I know I have filed grievances when I was a defense attorney against prosecutors. I will tell you, almost nothing ever happens. In fact, I will tell you, nothing has ever happened, ever. I had a Supreme Court decision where a prosecutor was called out as suborning perjury. I filed a grievance and nothing happened. I thought the person should have been disbarred. So there's a lot of different things that play in terms of holding people accountable.
Okay. And I think we've addressed this question a little, but it's an anonymous attendee. Actually, it's Dr. Brenda Jackson, a good friend of mine. She asks, what assistance does the exonerated person receive to assist them for returning to society? Is there anything that happens while that person is incarcerated? And I do want to add that Edward Sanders mentioned that SATO, which is the State Appellate Defender's Office, does welcome all returning citizens. And so regardless of whether they were wrongly convicted or not. But do you guys know of any types of services, even whether it's inside prison to prepare you for release or outside of prison? I think we addressed that a bit.
Nothing happens inside prison for the very fact that exonerees don't have notice. We don't tell people 6 months from now you're getting released. We tell people, we call people, I don't know, Marvin, what'd you have? 3 days, Ramon? I mean,
Yeah, like 3 or 4 days notice.
Right, because
about a week. Yeah, 3, 4.
You had about a week.
About a week, yeah.
Yeah, and so as soon as I have a decision, I can't tell anybody before. I'm not the decision maker. So it would be irresponsible of me to say, oh, Marvin, I think your case is heading towards exoneration, 2 months ahead of time, start getting ready. And then I present it to the prosecutor and the prosecutor says, you know what, Val, I disagree with you. I'm not going to agree to relief. And now look at what I've done to somebody. So it's the nature of the process that we cannot provide a lot of notice. And that's where the Michigan Department of Corrections comes in. Again, I said this before, it seems counterintuitive that someone who's been wrongfully convicted is going to look for help from the Michigan Department of Corrections. But their offender success program, we have a well-oiled machine, I think. I've worked with them very, very closely. So I give them advance notice. They know about probably a few days even before the exoneree knows that this is going to be happening. And they put all their people in motion. And they will contact the exoneree and they'll offer services and let them know what's available. And they can help with a whole host of things, medical, housing, clothing. They just have a lot, all the services that are available to someone being paroled, and they will hop into action very quickly. So they have like an exoneree team. They have specific people assigned to exonerees. And so that's what I would say. That's the immediate of what's available. And then I will contact Pastor Terrence. I will contact Proving Innocence. I try to spread the word out to other people in the community who can help, so they also know that this person's going to be getting out. And when
okay. Thank you so much. We got a couple of other questions here. Janice, she's been raring to get her question in here. She says, as per Hakeem Crampton, a wrongful conviction starts with the police encounter. Many will never be resolved due to plea deals and non-DNA. We need accountability and transparency measures to prevent these convictions. Are there any groups available working on these measures?
Well, I believe that accountability starts with the public. The public holds the hammer of accountability. I believe Valerie was alluding to that earlier, because there's only so much that people in government can and will do. But the public holds the hammer because the public holds the vote. The public can become aware of their options. The public can be educated on their options, and the public can get involved. And, you know, awareness, education, and involvement equals accountability. So the public actually holds the heavy hammer of accountability because the government really serves the public. So if you're not serving the public in a way that the public needs to be served for the advancement of humanity, then the public can make whatever changes they feel is necessary to get us closer to that.
Great. Thank you, Marvin. She adds here, this is Janice again. She says her son, Gerard Haycraft, was also wrongfully convicted in Wayne County. He served 2 years for a crime he didn't commit, and evidence that would have exonerated him was withheld by the DPD, and no accountability for these measures. Transparency and preventive measures are key, and there's absolutely no accountability to prevent these convictions. So just kind of a comment there. Now here's her last question. Why is it necessary to exhaust appeals to prove your innocence? How can we implement a faster process? Is this a reformative measure that the legislature can change?
Go ahead, Marla.
Well, I mean, that's a tough one, right? It has to do, you know, if we could start with a clean slate, no pun intended today, right? Where we could just freeze time, we would handle innocence claims after conviction promptly. And Michigan is actually a little unique because there is a procedure in Michigan if new evidence is discovered while the appeal is pending. And that's, I practice in another state and that doesn't exist. And that's a little window of opportunity to maybe go back to the trial court and present that new evidence more promptly. But time is our enemy when it comes to innocence work, right? So I think that's a great suggestion. But again, what we're balancing out overall is there are hundreds of individuals in Michigan prisons right now who have been in prison, let's say, more than 5 years, more than 10 years, who are claiming their innocence. And that's what Valerie and I handle every day we get up, right? And so a lot of the things that the audience is interested in are really important things. And it's about just, again, changing, you know, things on the front end. So, you know, the causes of wrongful conviction, there's about a half a dozen to 10 of them, and most of them are fixable. Again, kind of echoing what Val said earlier, you're not likely going to make a change either within a prosecutor's office or a defender's office, you know, to change a bad actor. A bad actor is a bad actor, but you can put measures in place like more funding for public defenders, like, you know, one example is, you know, incentivized testimony, or what is commonly called snitch testimony, where someone's a snitch, right? Some states have legislation now and laws in place where before that incentivized witness testifies, there's a pre-trial hearing to vet that information a little bit more. So really, you know, the way to it's not to have a better appeal process, it's to prevent individuals from not being wrongfully convicted in the first place. And I'm sure Val has something she'd love to add to that.
Val?
I've talked a lot, I'll let it go.
Okay. All right. Here's a question of faith. Brenda's asking about programs that were made available to our exonerees while incarcerated that help to possibly build your faith and get you through those tough times in prison. Were there classes like that or programs that help to get you guys through that? I know Julie kind of touched upon it a little bit.
Yes, at MCF, they got a faith-based unit. It's a unit where if you misconduct free or you staying out of trouble, MCF in Muskegon, they got a unit. It's faith-based where people come, outsiders come in and they worship and they build faith amongst each other. So yes, they had that at MCF. I was there.
Now, are you talking about the prison fellowship program there?
Yes.
At the academy program at Muskegon
MCF.
Correctional. Okay.
Yeah, they got it there. That's the only facility that I know firsthand that they allow faith-based and people coming out, and they can basically be in the same unit and worship and praise and take classes and etc. A lot of stuff. So yeah.
Okay, I'm very familiar with that program, being a part of Prison Fellowship myself, so thank you for that plug. Anyone else have programs that might have helped, faith-based programs while incarcerated?
Well, not necessarily faith-based programs. Personally, I turned my cell into a university. You know, usually when somebody come out of prison better than they were when they went in, whether they were supposed to be there or not, is because of their personal striving. If they really want to become better, they will. So I turned my cell into a university, starting off in order to fight my wrongful conviction. I had to, you know, produce a better mind in order to produce the result that I was striving for, because, you know, the people that put me in prison, they was well educated. So I had to educate myself in order to do what I need to do to get out. But I ended up turning my cell into a university. And that's why I started my business, Better Not Broken, because I came out better than I was when I went in.
Great. Thank you, Marvin. I know we're getting short on time here a little bit, but I would like to give the exonerees an opportunity to share a little bit about what needs to be done as far as in the community to really help provide you with the services and support that you need. I want to make sure we give you that opportunity. So Ramon, you want to go first?
Yes. Although it's a lot of resources out there, it can be more. Firsthand, I know resources needed, housing. A lot of people who come home that's exonerees, they don't have housing unless they family, they got some loved ones that's still alive and love them enough to let them embrace them so they can come live with them. Clothing, transportation, technology. For me, it was hard for me to work a cell phone, a computer, and I'm still navigating and trying to learn more. Driver's license. If you don't have your birth certificate, it's hard for you. Got to get your birth certificate in order for you to get your driver's license. Healthcare basis. A lot of people need Medicare, psychologists. I mean, they need a psych, or a lot of people in denial, but some that they not. A lot of people need mental health. PTSD, PTSD. Me personally, sometimes when I go in places, I feel like urgency to get out. Bad dreams, negative thinking, aggressive behavior. A lot of people run to substance abuse. So a lot of people need mental health to help them get back on their feet, because they dealt with so much in there that you was forced to deal with, either you like it or not. We was forced to live in a refrigerator. It was cold 24 hours. And then sometimes my wife asked me, I didn't got used to it, even out here. She say, I'm cold. I say, I'm not. Because I was so used to dealing with living in the refrigerator and running outside to stay warm. And you know, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of trauma that people have to accept in order to get better. And I accept it in order to get better. There's no shame in my game. I'm trying to get better, for not only for myself, for the future, for others, so I can make a difference and help others that's going through what I'm going through. So yeah, that's what's needed. And
thank you, Ramon.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Julie, anything to add there? Or I don't know if Hakeem is still on the call. Of course, we're going to want to hear from him as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I can really add too much more. He put that together very, very well.
Great, thank you. Hakeem, how can we as a community help those that are returning home that were wrongfully convicted?
Absolutely. I think it's very critical. Ironically, you know, one of the ways we have to do is educate. This is my parole agent currently calling me while I'm on this Zoom. My report date was yesterday. Like I said, I'm currently on parole still. I've been on parole for 15 years. And one of the things we have to do is we have to really educate the community about how valuable and important it is to understand what's happening in our criminal justice system. We have to do a way better, you know, we have to get into our community's culture, the community's daily culture. You know, they have to understand that this is daily occurring in the lives of people, interaction with the criminal justice system. And we have to change the narrative about how involved the criminal justice system is in our lives, and how it can be avoided, right? It can be avoided with us having the levels of contact. And as has been mentioned, when we have police contact, over-policing of neighborhoods, right? Disadvantaged communities or the over-policed neighborhoods, this is where contact begins with people, particularly people of color who are most marginalized and most impacted by wrongful convictions. And so we have to begin talking about, why are we over-policing neighborhoods like this? How can we build greater trust between law enforcement and community? This all starts the conversation about wrongful convictions, because it starts with that contact in our communities. We've seen headline news stories about people being wrongly arrested, people being called, 911 being dialed, and someone being arrested or confronted for no apparent reason. Not even I had to take this call from my agent because I got to report, y'all, but that's another story.
We don't want you to get in trouble, Hakeem.
Thank you, Hakeem.
Talk to you. So Denise, we're at the end, if you don't mind, and we can.
And Joe, let me
Close it
say
out
this
now?
before, let me just
Okay.
say that Edward Sanders has put in a lot of great suggestions as far as organizations that are helping on the outside: the Detroit Community Wealth Fund, the Detroit Justice Center, SATO, of course. And so I just want everyone to be mindful of those great agencies that are helping. And we're sorry we couldn't get to everyone's question, but I will encourage the panel, as you see some of those questions in the Q&A, to go ahead and respond to them. Joe, back to you.
Thank you, Denise. This was phenomenal, and so appreciate everyone on this panel, and appreciate the great questions from the attendees. And we are here for you as a coalition. If there's ever anything that we can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And again, just thank you for taking time out of your schedules to share this very important information. Dale is going to come at this time and give us our closing remarks. Dale, are you there? Dale, our producer director.
I'm here, but for some mysterious reason, my camera is
Your camera just went off. Okay, and he's our tech person, guys. So so you see how technology can go wrong for even those who are very familiar with it. So.
Well, I'm going to try sharing a screen that speaks very directly to the theme from today. Just to introduce myself. My day job is I'm the executive pastor at Hope United Methodist Church in Southfield, but I've been preaching in state prisons on a regular basis since 2006. And it's always been my concern to spread the word to the community at large of what I've seen in lockup. And this saying from Martin Luther King keeps coming back to me, that we can't just simply fight in the background because darkness cannot drive out darkness. We've got to shed light on this because only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And so that really came to my mind. My heart was moved when I heard Julie and Ramon, Marvin, and Bishop Starks all speak about their faith while they were in the lockup and how that helped them to survive. But I think the importance of this program to us in the community, especially the community of faith, is that we don't just accept this information and learn from it, but use this information as a catalyst to move out into the community, to spread the word to the community on this issue. Because as Martin Luther King made reference to, that love has everything to do with it. That is the great commandment from God. Being a pastor, Jesus gave us the two greatest commandments, which is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength, but also to love your neighbor as yourself. Often we refer to these people as returning citizens, but I like to change the verbiage of that and call them our returning neighbors, because before they were incarcerated, especially those wrongly incarcerated, they were our neighbors. And while they were incarcerated, they never stopped being our neighbors in spirit. And when they were released, they returned to our neighborhood. And so we can never forget that these are our neighbors that we should love as ourselves. So if you do nothing else but seek out some of the agencies referred to here today, seek out how you can contribute your help to those programs, and especially talk to your state rep. Call them, email them. Never let your municipal or state representatives forget that you are concerned about all of our neighbors, Black, brown, and white. I don't care about your cultural or racial profile. Everyone who has been impacted by the criminal justice system, or should I just say criminal legal system, because sometimes we quote how much justice is involved. Everyone impacted by the criminal legal system is marginalized, and marginalized long-term. And we need to reach out to our representatives and be a catalyst, take up the mantle ourselves and go forward from here, and take this moment of information and take it out with us and make it a moment of mission. And that being said, since I cannot be seen, Joseph, if you could please send us off to our destinations.
God, we just thank you for allowing us to be a part of this great event, for the information that has been shared, for the hearts that have been shared, Lord, and for the charge that has been given to us by our brother Dale. We just so grateful for all those who participated actively on the panel and those who attended. And we pray, God, that you will use us to make us more effective in addressing this very important issue. Lord, we love you. We bless you. We give you all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
I encourage you to follow us on Out4Life Detroit for more information about events like this. And we will also work on making the recording available to everyone. But we appreciate it. And we have your email addresses. So we'll be sending you some announcements from time to time to let you know what we're doing in the community. And Lord willing, we'll be able to meet in person one day. So that'll be good as well. Yep. But thank you, everyone.
Okay. God bless everyone.
God bless.
Bless you.